Hey, what's up? This is Seth Green, and you are listening to Somewhere in Vegas with Mark, and I am so hot, I would desperately like a glass of water. Please, please, give me some water.
This is Cindy Preston, and I'm with Mark on Somewhere in Vegas.
Hi, this is Melissa Peterman from CMT's The Singing Bee and the television show Reba. And I have to tell you, I just have to get it off my chest, I love Somewhere in Vegas with Mark.
Hi there. This is Faith Roscoe from General Hospital. You're listening to Mark on Somewhere in Vegas. And you better watch out. We know how to find you if you're not listening.
Hi, this is Shannon Egan from Whippet, and I love Somewhere in Vegas with Mark.
Hey, this is Lee Allen Baker with Somewhere in Vegas, talking with Mark with a Q.
This is Courtney Cronin. You're listening to Somewhere in Vegas with your host, Mark, and I would make sure to listen every week because he's a sure bet.
Hey, this is the Money Man, Eddie Money. I got 2 tickets to Paradise, and you know what? It's Somewhere in Vegas. And what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas.
Hi, this is Crystal Gale, and I love Somewhere in Vegas with Mark.
Hi, this is Terry Nunn from Berlin, and you're listening to Mark Somewhere in Vegas.
Hi, this is Miracle Laurie from Joss Whedon's Dollhouse. There are 3 flowers in a vase, and I'm listening to Somewhere in Vegas with Mark.
Hi, this is Erin Hill, and you are listening to Mark on Blog Talk Radio and Somewhere in Vegas. Mark is a great guy.
Hi, this is Sean Pulaski. I'm still trying to figure out Mark Pico's sexuality, but I know you're listening to Somewhere Live in Vegas.
Here you go, Mark. I'm sorry. I thought you were she. I'm sorry. Get out of the tent. Let's get out of here.
Hey, this is Lance and Anna from Free Radio. And Anna?
And you're listening to Somewhere in Vegas.
Yes.
My favorite.
You know, that's usually what happens with me. I go to Vegas and I get lost, and so I end up somewhere in Vegas.
Somewhere in Vegas.
But I just don't know where it is.
Not quite sure.
Yeah, word.
Get ready. It's going to be hot. It's in Vegas. Check out Mark. Be there or be square.
My next guest is a really accomplished author. You know, he's got several novels out. The novel Floating Twigs is out, which is a really great novel for the youngsters and the teens. And his current series started out with Hell is Empty, which is second book of that series is out right now. Chuck Tabb is on with us right now. How you doing, Chuck?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Yeah, you know, how's it out in Virginia? I know that we're starting to get a little cooler out here in Vegas.
Yeah, it's starting to get quite bearable. It can get real warm in the summertime, you know. But
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but it's temperatures are you know, highs in the low 70s or so, getting it down in about the 50s or so at night. So yeah, it's getting really comfortable. I go for walks to get a little exercise because, you know, if you're sitting in front of a computer most of the time, you need to do something. So it's much nicer to go out and take a walk now.
Yeah, you know, I mean, the kind of the bad news is about the pandemic right now is the fact that a lot of people can't go out and do a lot of things. But the good news is that a lot of people can get creative. I've had guests on the show that have talked about how they're writing music or they're doing music right now. I know I've been doing a little bit of writing as well, so it's a kind of a good time to be able to get those creative juices flowing. How have you been in terms of of your writing, and have you been doing a lot of it as of late?
I pretty well write every day. Well, I say pretty well. I'm either writing or editing every day. It's really, I see writing as a habit that you have to create if you really want to get stuff done. I was a teacher for 30 years, and when I went into teaching, my creative writing professor when I was a freshman in college, he also was my introduction to education professor. And when I was in the creative writing class, he told me, he goes, Chuck, says, don't be a teacher. I was like, what? Why? He goes, well, he says, you think you're going to have time to write, but you won't. And I was thinking, he doesn't know what he's talking about. But turns out, yes, he did. So when I retired from teaching, I decided to pursue my real dream, which is to write. And I've got 3 novels out, and I've got another one coming out before Christmas. So
Yeah, I think some of us, I think it's the kind of a wake up call for a lot of us now is that, now that we have time, we have the time now to pursue some of our passions as well. So I know I've been having several ideas for scripts that I've been kind of working towards as well. How much free writing do you do? Do you do a lot of it?
I belong to several writers groups, and one of the groups I belong to, we meet every 2 weeks, or we did meet every 2 weeks. But hopefully we'll get to do that again soon. But I did a lot of free writing in those. We would be given a time, like 10 minutes to just write on anything, or we would be given some kind of topic to write on, and that was helpful. A lot of my free writing is if I get ideas for a book, I will sit down and just sort of think about the book itself and where I want it to go, what I want it to do, and what points I want to make with it. If it's one of my detective series, what are some things that I want to happen in the course of that? And that's when those ideas sort of formulate through there.
When you write, is it a situation? I know for me, I kind of like writing the ending kind of first and then going back and going through the process there. How is it for you? Do you have an idea on the ending, or is it a situation where you have come up with an idea and then the ending comes when the ending comes?
I definitely have an idea of the ending. To me, when I write, I sort of feel like it's a journey. And whereas it can be really nice to take a trip or a journey and not really know where you're going to go, when it comes to a book, I like to know what's the end point, where am I headed, so that everything sort of flows in that direction and I don't take too many side roads into other areas of things. So, I definitely have the ending, but generally I'll have the ending and a few what I think of as waypoints, just places along the way that I want to touch on in the context of the book, but I don't plot the whole thing out. There are two kinds of writers. They say, plotters and pantsers. I'm sort of a plantser. I sort of plan a little bit, but a lot of what I write, sometimes it'll surprise me where it goes.
Yeah, with me, I start, I start with what the ending I think is, and then kind of the starting out there. It's always the middle that gets me a little bit perplexed sometimes, because there's certain, inroads that I have to go through, and I sometimes have to stop for a second to kind of, figure out where I want to go from, take the journey, as you say, from point B to point C before I get to point D. And that's always where I've always had the problems with. Yeah. And, and also that, I'll have once in a while, I'll have in the back of my mind a subplot or something like that as well. How is it for you to kind of brainstorm through that? And how do you get past writer's block when you get into a situation like that?
I tell you, a lot for me is if I get stuck, if I'm in the story or something and I kind of get stuck at a spot and I can't really figure out, okay, where do I want to go with this? What do I want to do with this particular scene I'm writing or something? It helps me a lot to go back and read the last 8 or 10 pages of what I've written, and that sort of gets me, again, focused in what I'm doing. And what I'll do is as I read, I'll go, yes, this is something I can do with where I'm going. And I'll go along and, here's another one. Sometimes, it doesn't work as well. So, I've gone days where through the course of 3 or 4 days, I might get about 700 words written because it's just moving along so slowly. It's kind of painful. But then something will happen and it gets to flowing again. So that I think helps a lot with writer's block, is to kind of go back and look at it that way. Plus, what I find is I'll write a book because I don't plan every little detail out. I'll write something along the way and I'll be going, this is great. I can, fit this in right here and come back to it later. Then when I'm like 80 pages later, I'll I'll realize, oh, I forgot to come back to that. So then I have to go back again and fit what I was going to do in an appropriate place. And sometimes that takes quite a bit of rewriting. It's kind of a frustration for me.
Well, that being said, I was thinking about, sometimes, I've written a script before where I had a character. I didn't like the character, so I took the character out and put a new character in. Is that something that goes on sometimes with your novel writing as well, where, you might not like a character and completely write them out, or a situation where, you introduce a new character, which kind of helps, get the story across?
I haven't really dropped characters before. I've dropped chunks of the book before because it just wasn't going where I wanted it to. But I've never run into actually dropping a character. Although, to be honest, with the current one I'm writing, it's the first time that I've looked at it and thought, this character really isn't functioning in the book in any sense. There's no reason to have this character. And it's a very minor character. So I've considered writing that character out, going back and removing the few small pieces where she is. But what I find is I will have chunks and I'm like, this isn't working, and I'll remove that. In fact, in Floating Twigs, I had a section in there, an entire conversation that went for like 8 pages of the book, 6 or 8 pages. And one of my beta readers read it and he said, I just don't think this would happen. It's in Floating Twigs, my coming of age book. I just don't think this would happen this way. And I went back and looked at it, and it was really kind of painful because it was a lot of work that I had put into this scene. And I realized he was right. And so I had to remove that entire chunk. And what had been about close to 1,800, 2,000 words worth of the book went down to about 40 or 50 words. So that will happen. But until this one character that I'm thinking about with my current book, I've really not run into that yet. Especially, well, now with my detective books, some of the characters just aren't likable to begin with. So, I mean, that happens. But, if you're dealing with a criminal who's like evil personified, those people are kind of hard to write sometimes.
It's a mixed bag, because sometimes they're hard to write, and sometimes, it's fun. It's sometimes fun to be the bad guy, because when it comes to the bad guy, there are no really set rules. You can. Oh yeah.
So
I mean, one of the scripts that I've written this summer, my antagonist is, I think, a really interesting character, and I like the way I wrote her, and I thought it was something that I think people won't like her, and that's what I really wanted. I think some people won't get it to that point, and I think that's what the fun part of having a really fun antagonist, is just that, if they absolutely hate her, then that they're engaged a lot more into what she's or he is doing. So it's really kind of entertaining, to say the least.
Oh yeah.
And I'm pretty sure you get a lot of that.
Oh yeah. And I think the thing is what I was sort of meaning with that is crawling inside their head sometimes can be kind of a dark place to go. Especially with the books I have on the detective series. Hell is Empty is about a man who kidnaps a 15-year-old. And some of those scenes were, they don't get graphic or anything, but we're both grown men. We know what was going to take place. Just writing about what he did was a really dark thing to do. He's extremely evil. And you find out as you go along, he's even more evil than you thought to begin with. Of course, his identity isn't revealed until near the end of the book. And I hope that's a surprise when you find out who it is. But it can be just kind of a dark place to go sometimes.
Yeah, the research and obviously like that, there are certain things that, you kind of get into. it's kind of crazy.